Some of you will be aware of the research going on currently in relation to the health benefits for Ayahuasca, MDMA, Ketamine, Psilocybe, Lysergic acid, Peyote, Mescaline. These sort of things, and doubtless there's others, they have such a profound effect on our psychology that with one reasonable dose of these substances can transform, transfigure, rewrite certain neuronal pathways within our minds that will change the way we look at the world, the way we perceive the world, the way we consider ourselves as a part of it, in it. Lots of different things. Many of these people, if you watch, there's a Netflix series, it's 3 series by Michael Pollan, and he took it upon himself, he's a doctor, he took it upon himself to discover what it's like actually to take these entheogens, or, you know, psychedelics. Entheogen means to discover God within. Psychedelic means mind manifesting. So whether it's a mind manifestation or whether it's a spiritual thing which you consider that you've discovered the God within you, that you are in actual fact God, I suppose that's down to different varieties of personality, different levels of personal and spiritual development. So those things have become, you know, that we're still tiptoeing in these realms, but people who have been working with these substances and patients for some time now are very desirous for more government funding, more government recognition of the benefits of these substances. And so we can actually get clinics all over the world which are vastly more affordable than they are now, because presently they're very expensive because they're very niche. But what is it that happens when we take these substances? What happens, people, is that we have an awakening from our subdued, contained, narrow, myopic parameters of our ego consciousness. It's the ego consciousness that keeps us suppressed, keeps us small, keeps us in fear, keeps us limited in any shape or form. Some of you may remember the movie called Limited, whereby this female, I can't remember the exact theme, but someone takes something and it makes them unlimited. And so most of us are aware that there's a great number of people who work in Silicon Valley who are microdosing lysergic acid, LSD, or psilocybin mushrooms, and maybe MDMA, I don't know what other substances. I've microdosed, and I am microdosing now, psilocybin. I've microdosed Amanita muscaria, and I've found them to be, at the very, very least, innocuous. So no harm to the body in any shape or form, and in medical terms there's never been any research which has found the harm deriving from these substances. But many researchers have found benefits, and the benefits are very subjective. It's very difficult to actually pinpoint or nail down in any concrete way, because the human brain and physiology is a very complex thing. But what I can say is that there's a higher level of stillness and contentedness, which would benefit a great deal of people. And of course, I was listening to a clip, and I put it down on one of the videos, but if you don't watch that video, you can't find the clip. It's with Dennis McKenna and Joe Rogan. It's about a 7-minute clip, and you can find it by just putting Dennis McKenna and Joe Rogan. And Rogan asks McKenna, what's the deal with microdosing psilocybin? Because he says that many people, reckon they get, a greater level of insight and, connection to the world, and, that they grow subjectively and all this sort of thing. And McKenna said, well, I can well believe that, because what these substances do, they take you outside of the narrow parameters of your egoic consciousness, and they awaken you to the world and all the nuances and all of the minutiae of the world. And you see with greater clarity. And when you see the world having had these substances, it's brighter. There's more information. There's vastly more information. I remember years ago watching this movie called Lucy, where she's had her stomach cut open and stitched in the bag of drugs, right? To go through customs, this sort of thing, and the bag burst, and so whatever chemicals was released into her body, and in the end it turned into a computer, right? If you remember, she just started to see more and more and more and more and more and more, become more and more intelligent and insightful and everything, until in the end she morphed into I think it was like the what do they call it? Where consciousness gains the oneness. I forget what it's called now. But she became very insightful. And so from the very first time I started to take these things, I was very, very aware of the consciousness expanding in many, many realms. And this also is a trait of deep meditation and long-term meditation. When you meditate consistently for long periods, I think you at least have to do like half an hour a day. 10 minutes a day is just wasting anyone's time. It's like trying to learn a musical instrument with 10 minutes a day. It's just stupid. It will take you 5 lifetimes. And but when we do meditate, and when we still our minds, then our cognitive ability gains a high level of prowess. It's like the tendrils. They start to seek out the neuronal passageways, start to fire in new areas and stuff like that. And then of course we have greater perception and insight and intuition, all sorts of things. So that is a wonderful thing that's happening. It's very, very, very overdue, of course. And, this whole war on drugs thing, which started in the late 60s, killed all of these researchers for 50 years and set humanity back for, lifetimes. And one day, when humanity manages to get rid of the archons ruling over us, then we will all be introduced to these substances, and they will will just be a part of our everyday experience. Effectively, there will be candy stores where we just go and pick whatever we want off the shelves. And so, when we take these things and we have a greater level of insight, we never forget that, we never lose that, and that's why we keep growing and growing and growing. Our consciousness expands exponentially. So with meditation and then with the psychedelics, then you can expand your consciousness a great deal. And an analogy I used yesterday when I was out walking with this friend of mine, who has a troubled mind. I said to him, what was happening was this, people. We went up to this park and, I've been speaking about the benefits of getting out in nature and, all this sort of stuff. And so, we're walking out in the park, but he's a big guy. He's pumped himself up on the steroids and everything. But when we're walking around, he's exhausted and he's tired and he's half my age. And I'm like, oh, goodness me, what is it with these young people, how they get so tired? And then by the time we'd taken, our DMT, he became really tired. And he said, do you get like that? And I'm like, no, the contrary. I get full of life and vitality. And, I'm in awe of the world. I could stay here for several hours more, just absorbing it and loving it. But what happened is, as soon as we took it, when we was walking, he was walking ahead of me, about 8 feet. And, I couldn't really catch him up because the faster I walked, the faster he would walk. And in the end, I had to stop him. I said, well, what's going on here? It's like you're rushing back to the car park now. And he said, well, I've become really tired and I just want to go back to the car, really. I said, look, just have a look what's happening now. You just had an experience which shown you a bit of the oneness. And you sat there in deep contemplation for about 10 minutes after. You couldn't speak because of the effect it had on you, with the realisation of this oneness and everything. But now you want to rush out of the oneness and you want to get back into your tin can of a car and you want to drive on the motorways and you want to go back to a town and a city and all this shit, and you want to... That's where the root of your issues comes from, young man. Do you not see it? It's the poison of all that societal stuff. When you're out in nature and you're standing on top of the world and you've got a wild stag looking in your eyes, you can't wait to go back into your tin fucking can. What the fucking hell is wrong with people? I said, what is wrong with you? I said, you're almost running away from this. I can't keep up with you. I said, do you know what happens? I said, stop. I said, just listen. I said, what do you hear? He said, nothing. I said, exactly. That's why nature is so nurturing. Because if you just settle your mind in a meditation, then you will hear the same. Nothing. And that is so nurturing. That is so beautiful. And that is the remedy for all of your psychological issues. It's a still mind in nature. Nature is the greatest medication that you could ever take. And I said to him, I said, do you think people thousands of years ago needed to be on fucking antidepressants and anxiety fucking suppressors and this, that and the other? They were out in this beautiful world. They had a still mind. And the only time they ever needed to be cautious, and it wouldn't be fear, just be cautious, because they would know every single nook and cranny of the environment they were in, and they knew what animals were dangerous potentially and this, that and the other, and they knew how to live with them and walk with them and be around them. And so there wouldn't be this racing all the time and a fear of everything. And yet this guy, all he wanted to do when he got out into this bliss was run away, back to the fear, back to where the fear was deriving from. Now, low states of consciousness people, they don't know they're running into the belly of the beast. They haven't woken up. They've made no realizations because they don't have a spirit within them to say to the ego, hey ego, shut the fuck up, sit down, I don't want to fucking hear from you for the next 3 hours, right? When I want you, I'll fucking call you, okay? Until then, fucking zip it, mate. Yes, that's what the higher self does to the ego, chills it the fuck out. And then once the ego shut the fuck up, then soul, spirit, can bask in the bliss. But if you are a young soul and you don't have a higher self, or you haven't got this connection, you haven't even realised that you've got this higher self. The vast majority of automaton, they've got no idea that they have a higher self. They don't know what the soul is. They don't know what the spirit is. They don't even know what the ego is. They don't know what human psychology is. They know fucking nothing. And how can we expect that their minds will be full of anything except shit, which destroys their quality of life? We can't expect anything else, people. But what he saw, what I saw on that day with the DMT, was a simulacrum come over the world. And this simulacrum is a realm without the ego. The ego cannot penetrate into this realm because when we take these substances, particularly DMT, your ego is closed the fuck down. It's just turned off. It's had its head fucking severed. And then you are in the world without the ego. When you're in the world, people, without the ego, it's a beautiful place. And you know that you are it and it is you. And it's absolutely incredible. So, any of you people, and I've told you and I've told you and I've told you, that say that you've got this issue, that issue, you want to kill yourself and this, that and the other, and what do? Well, you stuff yourself fucking full of cigarettes and fucking beer and fucking pizza and fast foods and barbiturates and fucking benzodiazepines, whatever, you stuff yourself with antidepressants, and you think, or society has told you that that's the route out of your evil. When in actual fact, with every cigarette you take, every fucking one of these pills, you are actually digging your own grave down to Hades. You're digging your own tunnel down to hell itself. That's what you're doing. And that's what these low conscious beings, these fucking doctors, so-called fucking doctors that have just been indoctrinated into every pill and potion that the pharmaceutical companies are producing. That's all they are. They're just yes men for the pharmaceutical companies. And it's absolutely shocking. They know fucking nothing about health, in due respect, people. And they'll never tell you anything that you can't find on the fucking internet in any case. Good God, and how people are so bound in their own terror and their own ignorance and their own myopic fucking states of consciousness. But, you know, what can you do? What can you do? I don't know whether I could ever wake this guy up. You know, he watches some of this stuff and he knows a little bit about what's going on, but he still hasn't got in touch with his soul. He doesn't realise he's got a spirit, a higher self, and, you know, he didn't even know anything about the double slit experiment. He didn't know about my art. You know, he's so embroiled in this physical fiction. And it's a terrible, dreadful, evil place. And this is what, you know, the Gnostics said. The Gnostics said this world is evil. It's a very, very dense, evil creation by the demiurge himself, to trap human souls. And there's a lot to be said for that. I don't have an adherence to that because I think the world is a beautiful place. I think the Archons got it wrong in that it's not the world that's an evil place. It's your mind that lends yourself to thinking that it is. And if you were reading the Old Testament like the Gnostics did and saw the complete evil of this demiurge, then they would assume that, well, if the demiurge created this world, then it must be evil. But I would go a step further and say, no, that demiurge didn't create this world. He's too small and weak to do that. He just hijacked it. And how did he hijack it? He hijacked human consciousness. That's what the demiurge has done. And so how did he hijack their consciousness? By keeping their consciousness low and dense. But some of us have escaped that. Some of us are like very fine particles that have fell through this sift, whereby the demiurge has got the vast majority of humanity in a sieve, right? Because the holes are too small for them to fall through. But real spirity human beings, we don't pertain to any mass, and so we just fall straight through, you see. So that's how some of us are, and that's why we're not contained with the evil of the world. And that's why we bask in the glory and the genius of it, because it is absolutely wonderful, created by another god, let's say. Sophia, vastly over and above the demiurge of the Gnostics, you know. But when you see the simulacrum come over the world and your ego is completely depleted, then you know what the world actually is without your ego. And you know that anytime you're in fear of the world, it's because of your ego. So you know that fear is your ego. Fear pertains to you. And so if it pertains to you in your mind, then you must be able to have something to do about that. You must be able to have some say. You must be able to say, hey, ego, fear, go fuck yourselves. Go busy yourself sucking those wieners over there, because I'm not interested in you fucking talking shit to me, right? Yes. And so we take mastery over the ego. And so for any of you who want to know how to do this, then you might want to read my book, because in that book I tell you how I have done it. And if you value the things I say and the state of consciousness which I'm exhibiting here, then you might just want to sit the fuck down and read through that book, because there's a massive amount of very, very useful information in it. And for those of you that don't know I've wrote a fucking book by now, when it's in every single one of the descriptions on my videos, I will present them to you. They're the same book with different titles, and they're available on Amazon. And this was the original, but I changed my mind on the title, because the title would obviously attract Christian people, and they're the last people that want to be reading this book. So I changed it to the more befitting title of A Journey to the Self. A journey to the self, people. I'm going off on some like, I'm on a hillman now. Oh God, the journey to the self. Man, what a blast. Yeah, the journey to the self, people. The journey to the self is terrifying for most. And to be quite frank, nobody would really launch themselves upon it willingly, because it's too terrifying and you have to suffer too much. But if it's your fate, like it was my fate, because I'm an old soul and it was my destiny to do that, once again to experience what was necessary for me to experience, to rise even further than I rose all the other times in my incarnations. So I'm just rising and rising, the journey to the self. When in actual fact, there is no self. You see, so this is the irony of this book. Because by the time you've been on this journey and you've traversed many paths and you've been looking for the self, well, the self just falls through your fingers. And so ultimately what I conclude is the self, well, the self isn't anything to do per se with this human experience. The self is God consciousness. So you find God consciousness, people. That's the self. Buddhists say there's no self. If you look at the construct of the human being, if you go, well, we have an ego, we have a soul, we have a self, we have a spirit, we have a pain body, we have an astral body, we have an ethereal body. Fucking hell, what don't we have? Everything. What's all that contained within? Consciousness. God consciousness, cosmic consciousness, isness. I am that I am. It's all within that. That's what you are. I'll leave you with that, people.